All right, we're back. Take two. This is working. All right, I don't know why Facebook does this, y'all. Sometimes it wants it flip-flop the other way. For those of you who are experiencing this as well when you're going live, it seems when you start in the live function, it allows you to go, what are we, horizontal, but when you start as a text function, it wants it to go the other way. So just figure that out. Great information to know. Anyway, hi, welcome, happy Tuesday. Happy first live of the new year, I believe. Last time we talked, it was New Year's Eve, and we talked all about bringing in the new year strong and some thoughts about the resolutions and just some different approaches to the new year. Today, I am super fired up. I called this Going Up on a Tuesday. You know that Drake song? If you don't, there's a link for you. I'll make sure to include it for you because it's just a fun song. But I am going up on a Tuesday. I'm super fired up. I want to talk all about dropping the BS around a very specific word and concept in your business that comes up for almost every single one of my clients. It is something I've done personally a lot of work around. I think there's a lot of messaging in our society around this, and I really want to have a conversation around this, talk about dropping the BS around this, and really show you and connect the dots how when you drop the BS and the baggage that is associated with this word and the concept of this word and the lessons we have as a society around this word, how much success this opens up for you, how this is essential for your business in terms of thought leadership, in terms of income, in terms of impact, in terms of taking up space. There are so many things here around this word and phrase that when we let go of the BS around it, it allows us to soar. And as long as we are living in the story of this word that I think society has done a really good job of drilling into many of us, it keeps us playing small and hiding in plain sight, and quite honestly, really dimming our ability for success. And hey, I don't know who just joined. Say hello. So I won't tease this out too long because you probably want to know what that word is. Let me make sure I have my notes here. So the word I want to talk about today, and the word that would be really interesting to hear what you all think around this, is the concept, the word humble. Humility, being humble, and even I'd say this is its counterpart, modesty. Before everyone's like, no, this is so important. Being humble is such an amazing trait. Let's really talk about this a little bit because I've got a whole bunch to say about this. And I really think for those of us, for those of you who are in the place of believing that humility is this beautiful, important trait, there's a lot of baggage that tends to come up around that. And it is absolutely limiting your ability for business income and impact. My cat is stuck in this room and trying to scratch her way out of this room. Let her out and we'll come right back. Hold on, y'all. All right, Nala. This is... Go on. How'd you go? All right, that's how you know I'm live, y'all. My cat is never without a little bit of our live interruptions. I don't know who just joined live. This has been all sorts of tech difficulties. We are talking about humility, we're talking about modesty, we are talking about how this keeps us playing small. So before we dive into this, because I want to talk a lot about the messaging around this in our society and how this has us playing small, and really what I want to encourage you to lean into in your business and why I am so fired up about this and want to drop this, let's talk about some definitions first, because I think definitions, what a word means, is so important and so powerful, and so often we're not even sure these words we latch onto that we think are so important, what they really mean. So let me pull up these definitions for you first. Humble. Humble means, as an adjective, it is having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance. And as a verb, it is to lower someone in dignity or importance. Let me repeat that. Having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's importance. As a verb, lower someone in dignity or importance. I don't know about you, but no part of that sounds like thought leadership to me. No part of that sounds like a way to positively impact people. No part of that sounds like confidence to me, or standing in our power, owning our brilliance, owning our light. That sounds like low self-esteem to me. That sounds like playing small. That sounds like dimming our light to make other people feel better. I also want to talk about modesty because that comes up around this as well. So I pulled up the definition for modesty because what I find when I talk about this sometimes with clients is they're like, fine, I don't have to be humble, but it's important to be modest. Let's talk about modesty for a second. Modesty, the definition. I didn't make this up, y'all. This is like, Google it, definition. Modesty, unassuming or moderate in the estimation of our achievement or of one's achievement. It's literally defined as moderate, limited, small. So let's just think about that. Limited, small, moderate. That is the complete opposite of playing big, of shining bright, of limitlessness, of taking up space like a boss. All of these definitions go in direct opposition against what it is we need to lean into if we want to be entrepreneurs who are building, growing, scaling businesses in a way that positively impacts people, that helps people to have transformation, and that allows us to make income doing what we love. I don't know about you, but if I take a look at the people who inspire me to change, who I want to listen to, who I see as thought leaders, who I want to give my money to help me transform, there's not a single one of them who is standing in the space of humbleness or playing small or dimming their light. I'd love to hear from you if you can think of any examples. I was speaking with my mom about this earlier and she used Jesus as the example. Let's just break that down for a second. Whatever you believe, whatever religion that you follow, last time I checked, Jesus did a really great job of letting people know what it was he was bringing, what the profit was, and was really great about sharing that. Wasn't humble at all. And there's a whole book called the Bible that speaks to this. Maybe he had some other people speaking about those things, but you better believe he made sure someone knew, so that was all in a book that all of us can read and talk about now. There's no way I know the story of Jesus or can talk to you about that if somewhere along the line he hadn't been humble and modest about what it is he did. There's quite honestly nothing humble or modest about whatever you believe. This isn't even about religion, but just as an example, because I think we can go to those extremes in terms of modesty and humility. Let me know if you're picking up what I'm putting down, because I think this is incredibly important, because what I believe to be true is that in society, and I think unfortunately, I think women more than men are taught this growing up. We are taught from a young age that it is really nice to be humble. It is really nice to be modest. And we've put a lot of glorification around what it is to be nice, and we have glorified the concept of humility and modesty to the degree that we lean into that at the detriment of our own success and our own ability to quite honestly take care of ourselves and to serve others. And I honestly think that, and I'm on a mission to break the story around this, because I think the more that we are leaning into this idea and this story and this glorification of humbleness, of modesty, and of this being nice and of being nice, it's quite honestly the opposite of being nice, because there's nothing nice about lying about what it is you do or how good you are at what you do. And when it comes to business, when it is your job to communicate effectively what it is you do and how you can help people, that is being of service, it's not very nice to be humble and to ask someone who is giving you money to do all the work to figure out what it is you bring to the table. It's quite honestly the opposite of heart-centered and the opposite of service when we have a way to help people, to help someone transform their life through our work, through our product, through our service, through our entrepreneurialism, to play small, to dim our light, and to be humble about it. There's nothing nice about that. I quite honestly think it's the opposite of nice. And yet we have been taught as a society, I know I learned that growing up, and I spent 30 plus years of my life believing that it was really nice to be humble. It was really nice to play small. In fact, if I could be humble and modest, then I could make other people feel better. And let's just think about that concept for a little bit in terms of entrepreneurialism, in terms of what most of you, if you're here with me in this space, what part of your mission is, I believe is, yes, to make money doing what you love, but I know if you're here, it's to be impactful, to be a thought leader, to help transformation occur. How is dimming our light and playing small to make other people feel better a way that we transform lives, a way that we create a platform to share a message, a way that we confidently stand up and share our message? It goes completely against that. They're two completely polar opposites of the same spectrum. Let me know if this is making sense to y'all, because you're very quiet today. And I'm very fired up and I want to have a conversation around this. I'm totally okay if you disagree, because I'll just tell you why I think I'm right, but I'm kidding, not kidding. But I would really love to hear what your opinion is on this for those of you just joining in. We're talking all about the BS around humbleness and around modesty, and how we have created the story that that is being nice and that that is this wonderful, beautiful, amazing trait, and how in reality it perpetuates a lot of playing small, hiding in plain sight, what my boyfriend calls yucking your yum, dimming our light, not owning our brilliance, not taking up space like a boss, and not communicating effectively as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, what it is you bring to the table and how you can serve your people. And it completely goes against being able to affect change or to affect transformation or to be of service in a way that is beneficial to others. Think about it. If I was sitting here sharing this concept with you and I was like, well, I don't know, guys, like, I have this idea and I think maybe this idea is good. I don't know. Like, or I was like, I just kind of, you wouldn't listen, and it wouldn't help land. It wouldn't help communicate what it is I'm getting across. And I would be asking you to caretake me, because that's part of what humbleness does when we're in that space of giving that low estimation for ourselves, right? That's part of the definition. We're asking other people to build up our esteem for us. We're asking other people to do the work for us. We're asking other people to notice our brilliance, and we're crossing our fingers and hoping they'll figure it out and fill in the gaps for us. That's what humbleness perpetuates. It's quite honestly, I think it bleeds into the whole idea of codependency. It asks people to caretake us, and it is not standing in your power. It is not showing up as an entrepreneur that is able to affect that change and transformation. And I promise you, it is affecting your business bottom line. I promise you. I'm going to rewind the tape a little bit here, because this is coming from someone who, again, I spent the majority of my life into my 30s. I'm 38, so for context, you can do the math. It's the majority of my life believing that being humble was this really important trait, and that being nice was like the most important thing in the world. I have done so much in my life because I thought that was nice, and I have done so much from a place of modesty or from a place of humility. I have friends who've told me, I'm so humble and I'm so modest, and what a nice, beautiful thing that is. What's the phrase? Nice is a place in France, or Nice is a place in France. That's kind of where the nicety needs to stop. And I think we hear that, we're raised with that, society teaches us that, we take that on. And if we think about the brain and how we're wired, we are wired as humans to want to fit in, to want to be a part of a tribe, to want to be liked. It is a core human need, that connection. And so if we learn and we pick up this message that being nice, being humble, being modest, that gets us accepted, that gets us fitting in with the tribe. And if we ruffle any feathers, if we do anything that's past being humble, if we take up space, if we shine, if we own our brilliance, that's not being nice. That's not going to have us get liked. That's going to get us kicked out of the tribe. Of course, we're just going to keep leaning into, let me be humble, let me be humble, let me be modest, because that's nice and that's what makes people like me. Except it's the opposite of nice, and it's the opposite if you want to be an entrepreneur and a thought leader and enact any kind of change in this world. It is the opposite of nice, and it is the opposite of what allows you to have that impact in the world. Lee McQueen says, well said. Thank you. I'm like sweating, y'all, because I'm feeling this one today. I've had a lot of conversations with clients around this, and I get a lot of pushback from clients in a great way. That's part of the beauty of a coaching relationship, is to have that space to explore these conversations, because so much of the work we end up doing is really starting to shift these stories and the baggage and the BS we attach, the stories we attach to a word like humble or modesty, that we're kind of like dragging around with us, the reasons we think we should be modest, the reasons we think we should be humble, because of what we've learned and the stories we've perpetuated and glorified into our adult lives. There's often a lot for us to unpack, and there's often a lot of resistance that I met with. However, it absolutely dampened your ability to show up in your business and make money. Because then if we flip to the other side, imagine what happens when you stop and drop. It's like stop, drop, and roll. When you stop to drop those stories around being humble as a way that's nice, and when you're playing small as a way that allows other people to feel better, if you start to shift the story and think, oh, when I stand in my power, when I own my brilliance, when I own my zone of genius, when I can effectively communicate what makes me great at what I do, and when I can stand in that, maybe what's really nice about that is it allows other people to believe and do the same. When I brag from this place of grounded power, not from this place of trying to make people feel bad or feel less than, but from this place of, and this is what's possible for you too, and this is how I can serve you, and this is how I can help you. And when I'm standing in this confidence, this is a place that you can understand that I trust myself, so you can trust me, and you can feel really safe working with me. just think of what's possible for you and your business, for your clients working with you when you're coming from that place. It really changes the whole narrative, right? I mean, you can think about what happens in your sales conversations, what happens in your sales copy, what happens in your content, what happens in the energy you're bringing, and what happens in those conversations having with your clients, whether you're a coach or you're selling a product. It really still comes from that same energy and space. I know for me, even if I'm buying a product, I want to buy a product that is bragging about how great it is, not a product that's like, I don't know, like, I'm kind of okay. You should give me a whole bunch of money and just figure it out yourself, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm not taking out my wallet for that, and neither are you. And I think as business owners, it's quite honestly our responsibility to drop the humbleness and to stand in that place of confidence and to brag. And so I want to change and reframe how we see bragging a little bit, because I think we hear bragging and just the way we have glorified humility and we have glorified modesty and we have glorified being nice and kind of made nice to mean being meek and small and just fitting in and not having an opinion. We've made bragging to mean the opposite. Bragging, look, we've got humble brag. That's something we almost judge when we're like, oh, they're humble bragging. We judge that, right? When we see someone bragging, we've been taught that we should judge them and they're so full of themselves and they're so conceited and oh my gosh, look at them. When quite honestly, I think the reason that comes up for us and there's so much judgment around it is it triggers us, because I think a lot of us see that and wish we could stand in our power, stand in our light that way. And so it triggers the F out of us. And then, I mean, come on, what do we like to do when we're triggered and when something doesn't feel great and there's a bunch of people who will agree with us? We just want to keep talking about it and judging and judging and judging and talking shit until suddenly this becomes the truth. And bragging and confidence and standing in that place it's like yucky and gross, and like we can get a group of people together and talk shit about someone, feel really great, because we're wired that way as humans. We want to get together and band as a tribe, and assume even if it's around something negative, we feel that connection. What if we could do the same thing with bragging? What if we could start to shift the narrative around bragging, start to shift the narrative around confidence, start to shift the narrative around standing in your power and owning your work, and starting to see it as this beautiful thing, as this brave thing, as this courageous thing? Because y'all, I don't know about you, but any of my clients who go out there and own their work, they've done a lot of work behind the scenes to be able to do that. I know me, I've done probably a decade's worth of work to be in a place where I can confidently own what I do well. If you look at, I was just watching the Golden Globes, did anyone else watch that? The people on stage who are accepting those awards, they've been in the industry, some of them for 17, 20 years. You better believe many of them have spent 20 years working on the ability to be able to stand up and accept an award gracefully. And quite honestly, some of them are still, you can see it, they still have a hard time accepting that and kind of go into that humble brag we're talking about. Anyway, side note and side tangent. But I quite honestly think, and this is the narrative and the reframe I want to offer here, it's brave and it is courageous to come at your work, talk about your work, talk about your brilliance, talk about your zone of genius, talk about what it is you offer in your business and your services from this place of confidence, to brag about what you're so great at. I think that takes a lot of bravery. It is a whole lot easier to play small. It is a whole lot easier to shrink. It is a whole lot easier to find a tribe of people and to fit in by making them feel better, by dimming what's great about you. I know, because I've spent a lot of my life doing that. It is way more comfortable. It is uncomfortable for most people to stand grounded, sometimes when they're the only one in what they do well. It takes a lot of bravery and courage to change that story and to change that narrative. But here's what's beautiful about that. When you do, you start to change the narrative. You start to show people what's possible. Instead of playing small to make other people feel better, when you lean into, and I know that's such a played out phrase, but I think it really applies here. When you play big and what you do is you show other people what's possible. So often for someone to transform, for someone to change, for someone to create something bigger in their life, they have to see it first, right? I know that's something that's been important for me. For so many people, our job as entrepreneurs, as service providers, as people who are selling something, it's to be that example of what's possible. It's so that people can borrow that belief from us. I know for so many of my clients, they get to borrow the belief from me before they have it themselves. That means I have to be so grounded and rooted in my own belief and able to articulate that and stand in it. Does that make sense, y'all? So when you're able to be brave and courageous and sit in that discomfort, because it is uncomfortable to own what makes you great. And when you're able to sit in that, and because look, here's the truth. People are probably going to judge you. Not everyone's going to love that. It might ruffle some feathers because this does go against what we've been taught to be nice. And I think the narrative's changing maybe slightly, but in very small places. So when you're courageous and brave enough to do that, you start to shift that status quo and story. Younger generations will be so benefited by this, but you start to show people what's possible. You come from a place of service and you step into thought leadership in a way that allows you to communicate to people the change that is possible, what they're able to do. And if you're a business owner that wants to make money, and if you're hanging out with me, I know you do, money's a beautiful thing, you allow yourself to make more money doing the work you do because, again, you're able to communicate from this grounded place of self-trust what you can do so damn well and how you are the best solution answer for your people. Again, that takes bravery and courage. That's bragging. That's confidence. That isn't something that, it's so much easier to go the opposite way, right? Let me just see if we have any comments because I know sometimes they come in late. Y'all are very, very quiet. So please let me know if you have reflections, questions, if you disagree. Again, I'm totally open to it. I'll just tell you why I do agree. But no, I sincerely would love to hear what you're thinking about this. And I'm going to check my notes because I feel like I had a couple other thoughts on this I wanted to share. This is what I was going to share with you. So just a personal example around this. So I think kind of the antithesis of this and what gets a lot of flack, is that the right term, is bragging, is standing in our confidence. Here's what I find is interesting. If we look at, and this is not a male, female, I love men, this isn't even coming from that space. I just think as a whole, women have been taught this belief system and carry more baggage and stories around humility and around modesty and around leaning into bragging than men do as a whole. There are plenty of men I work with who have the same things come up around humility. So this isn't a male-female thing. However, if we look at the industries at large, if we take a look at, say, football, and we see a football player who is leaning into how great they're doing, we call it swagger. Like, isn't that a great word? I think swagger is a great word. We could all use a little more swagger, and maybe that's a way to think about it. If we look at more male-driven, and again, this is not male-female, this comes up for all of us, this is a very human thing, but I think this is just an easier place for us to latch onto this. If we look at some more male-driven industries, when we see in those industries some men lean into bragging confidently, we label it as confidence. We label it as success. We label it as leadership. And so what I would offer for all of us, men as well, because again, we work with plenty of men who this comes up for them as well, is to start to reframe confidence and bragging and taking up space. I call it taking up space like a boss, as leadership, as service, as confidence, as swagger. Because I think those are such beautiful traits that I know I aspire to, and I know most of us aspire to in this space. Jody says, let others borrow your belief. Love that. Thank you. I don't think I can take credit for it. I'm pretty sure I borrowed that from someone else. So I borrowed that concept and belief from someone else, but thank you. I'm so happy that resonates. I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. But yes, let other people borrow your belief. Let other people borrow your swagger. If we think about so many of the issues, the problems we come up against in business, most of them start up here, right? Most of the things we're stuck against start in our heads. How much of that would be shifted if we were leaning more into our swagger, into our confidence, into that place of belief, into that place of our own grounded power? If we think about, there's a lot of, I don't want to get into a political talk, but there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now. If we think about that, how much of that would be shifted if more and more people were courageous and brave enough to stand in their power and to own that and to help lift other people up instead of trying to keep people down? Again, I'm going to repeat this definition to you. Humble as a verb is literally lower someone in dignity or importance. That's the opposite, I think, of what all of us want in business and in this world. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox about this. I'm going to close with a story, an example from my own personal life around bragging and how powerful this can be. I have a girlfriend, an ex-client of mine who's a really great friend of mine, and we now just stay in touch. And we have, because of the importance, and I have such a belief and such a mission to create more space for bragging, for confidence, for the support and celebration of owning what is amazing and wonderful and awesome about all of us. We have started this practice between the two of us where we will unasked send one another brags, not humble brags, not brags where we push the other person, not brags where it's like, well, I hope this is okay, I shared this with you. At any time, we can just text the other person a brag, and we label it as a brag because that's the whole point of it, right? To build up that practice, to build up, to shift that narrative into bragging's this beautiful thing. And so with that, what we do is we then celebrate the brag. We celebrate one another. We celebrate what went into making that brag possible. We celebrate sharing the brag. We create as much space and stretch that space as much as possible around that positive brag. And we talk about what else is possible because of it so that we can stretch that picture. So it's really great when you're the one bragging because it creates a lot of safety. It helps to change that story we have that it's not safe for me to brag because people won't like me. I'll get kicked out of the tribe. People are going to say mean things to me. They're going to think I'm sleazy, yucky, icky, gross, mean, whatever, all the things, the stories we have in our head. So it creates this beautiful space. But here's what's fascinating and what I really want to reflect to all of you is when I'm in that conversation, if I'm on the receiving end of the brag and we're opening that space and having that celebration, can I tell you how great it feels to be in a brag with someone and to stretch it out and to have a conversation and how positive that is and how much that makes me see is possible, how positive and uplifting that is versus what I think so much of society teaches us as a way to connect, which is by bitching about life and talking about problems and has anyone experienced that where for some reason it happens after vacations, you talk to a friend and you don't want to talk about how great the vacation is. You just talk about all the ways the vacation kind of sucked. It's like that one-upping one another on problems or on how life sucks instead of bragging about how great life is to lift one another up. It is mind-blowing the shift in conversation it creates and how uplifting on the receiving end it is. And I share this because I think it's important to hear because again, I think so much of the fear around taking up space and owning those wins or owning what makes you great at what you do, we worry that, oh, this is going to make people feel bad or this is going to feel yucky. When really what it does is it just creates more positivity and lifts people up. That has been my experience in it. So I'm fired up today. I told you all I was. For those of you who are here and for those of you watching the replay, I would really love to encourage you and create some space in this group and just overall to start to lean into bragging more, owning your brilliance more, taking up space more, sharing more about the work you do, why you're so great at it, what you bring to the table. It's so important personally from that place of personal power and quite honestly from a business strategy, marketing, and sales perspective, it is absolutely essential if you want to make more money. Hands down, period, end of story, fact. So I really want to encourage you, hop in my group, share a brag. I'll have some posts going next week or the week after around this as well, encouraging you to do so. And then here's my other invitation. When you see someone bragging, when you see someone sharing those wins, instead of doing what I think so many of us have been hardwired to do, which is to have that trigger point or to feel like, oh, get all judgy, lean into celebrating with them. Lean into how can you see yourself in that brag? Lean into where is the positivity? Because that's how we start to change what bragging means. That's how we start to change it for other people, but that's also how we start to change that narrative for ourselves. So that is my invitation for you. I promise you, if you do this, it will shift how you feel personally about yourself and it will shift your business. This is hands down something I see with clients as we do the work through this, something I see dramatically shift their results. I over and over and over and over again. So it's not just one or two people to the point of like 10 times in their income. And we can boil a lot of it back down to literally what we're talking about here. So that is my invitation to you. If you're watching on the replay, let me know if you have questions, thoughts, reflections. Thank you for going up on a Tuesday with me and getting fired up with me about this. This is a really important conversation. So please, please, please brag. Be courageous, be brave, brag. And then I will be back next Tuesday. Oh, I have an announcement for you. I forgot about that. We have our free training for this month. I will make sure I drop a link for that. We are going to be talking about creating a business blueprint and money map for 2020. all about creating a simple one-page business blueprint and money map. So we're going to drop the complication, drop all the confusing funnels and strategies, and really talk about the clarity, mindset, strategy, and action that goes into a very simple business blueprint. I'm saying blueprint instead of plan because I think business plans make most of our brains explode. So that will be on the 22nd. I'll make sure we have some links to sign up for that. I would love to have you join me for that so we can make 2020 a year that you get brave, you brag, and you have that business blueprint and money map to make more money doing what you love. All right, that's what I've got for y'all. I send a whole bunch of love. Can't wait to see and read your brags, and we'll be back next Tuesday with another topic for you. Lots of love.